for work of artifice and trifles, I would just like to say a couple of things. You know, I think a lot of you picked up on a common thread that runs between those two works, and that's the idea about the way men and women, you know, get along in the world. In trifles, we see that men and women have a different way of looking at the world, and what the men perceive as trifles, little insignificant things that are not important, the women look at and realize that they are of great importance. It's because of that that the women are able to piece together the evidence, and the men just look right past it, because all of those little things are important. The men look, you know, and a lot of you pointed out that because the women decide to hide the evidence, that's a resolution to the conflict in the story. And that is a resolution to the conflict in the story, but the question sort of is, what is the conflict in the story? There's been great debate on this question, and there's no right or wrong answer. A lot of you said Mrs. Wright is the protagonist, even though she does not appear in the play, because she's the character we're all kind of rooting for, and, well, some of us are rooting for and hope, you know, that she doesn't get punished too harshly for murdering her husband. I almost hate to say that. But I found myself certainly rooting for the women to hide the evidence. Poor Mrs. Wright. Wow, I'm sorry to say it out loud even, but that's the way I feel about it. And I think perhaps it's written sympathetically towards the women, certainly. But is Mrs. Wright, or like Mrs. Hale or Mrs. Peters, the protagonist? Mrs. Hale and Mrs. Peters are the two that kind of come to the conclusion that they haven't been as good neighbors as they could be, and that they're not doing as good a job as they could, kind of creating community and whatever for women. You know, Mrs. Peters was married to the law, but by the end she's the one that wants to hide the evidence, because she remembers what it was like to have some boys be cruel and kill the cat, little kitten, and things like that, and the loneliness of being, you know, just sort of isolated and by yourself. And a couple of you pointed out this takes place way back, and you do have to think about the setting. You know, there's no flip quarter, computer, cell phone, TV, telephone even. You know, they had to sort of, Mrs. Wright wasn't going to get a phone, and even that would be a party line, you know, and sort of limited. So she was very isolated and alone, and does that justify killing her husband? You know, I think a lot of us might say no. But, you know, the men said, hey, she had a roof over her head, you know, and he didn't beat her. And she wasn't hungry, so she had it made, right? So we all know there's a little more to relationships, and it's a little more complex than that. But that was a great job. So I'm not really answering your question, I guess. The resolution, though, has to come at the end, Chuck, because you said the resolution would be if Mrs. Wright had killed her husband. But necessarily, by definition, the resolution of any story or play has to come near the end. It can't be near the beginning, just structurally. It has to be near the end. The only other thing I wanted to say is I really liked how Saria kept focused on the question, which was what's the conflict and the resolution. And I thought Saria's thread for Trifles was really good. Wanted to answer one quick question about work of artifice. You all get it. There's no need for me to repeat everything that you said well in the discussion board. But Chuck was wondering about the lightning, and no one really answered that specifically. And I just wanted to say that the lightning represents the dangers that are out there and that are inherent with kind of living your life and taking chances and reaching your full potential. You know, we tend to want to protect our children. And in this particular poem, you know, the gardener is not cruel, and the gardener is not intentionally trying to stifle or hurt the bonsai tree. And yet that might make it even more cruel, I don't know, but and yet he takes a tree that could be huge on the side of a mountain and keeps it contained here. And a lot of you recognize that's symbolic of not allowing that tree to reach its full potential. Also protects, right? It protects the tree. The tree is never going to get hit by lightning. But there's that sort of idea of, yeah, if she reached her full potential, or if that tree reached its full potential, it could possibly get hit by lightning and meet an untimely and violent end. But that's part of that idea about reaching your potential. You have to take chances and make mistakes and sometimes even get hurt. And, you know, we all have a tendency to want to protect those that we love, but we kind of have to be careful, right, so that we don't stifle them and make it so that they can't be who they are and reach their full potential. So I just wanted to address